are we doing? I mean, collectively, as human beings globally, how are we handling this pandemic? Let's give ourselves a score from 1 to 10. Imagine it in your head, 10 being high, 1 being low. How are you doing? And how are people in positions of leadership doing? Let's give them a score. And then think about it one last time. How are you personally doing? So not us collectively, but you as an individual. How are you doing right now? If those numbers aren't great, we shouldn't be surprised. For over a year, we've heard terms like unprecedented, once in a lifetime, generational challenge. This is not a normal time. This is a challenging time. And the question is, what do we do about it? Well, there are 2 models I want to look at today that will help us to understand where we are, what's at stake, and how we can make the best of it for ourselves, for others, and for the greater good. The first is the very big picture. I'm an educator, so I look at everything as an opportunity to learn. Here's how I picture things. A student comes into my classroom, and I've got 2 things on my mind: their development, their learning, their progress, and time. How much time I have to create an opportunity for them to learn and be better. Now, if you take that concept, those 2 variables, and you expand it out for a lifetime, you get a much bigger look at something I call trajectory. So let me walk you through a typical trajectory. Yay, it starts with you're born. Congratulations. And when you're born, the first 5 years of your life, your trajectory, your learning, your development, very steep. You're learning a lot of new stuff every single day, all day. And it's uninterrupted learning. It's pretty awesome. Then your first shift occurs. And that shift is when you first go to school. Now your learning is a little bit more regulated. There are certain ways you do it, certain ways you don't. And believe it or not, your trajectory slows down a little bit. It's a little less steep. You're still learning, so it's all good. Then you have another shift. When you first go on to middle school or primary education, there's another period of time where it's new, it's different, it's challenging again. Then you go on from there, you go into secondary education or high school, another shift occurs, another period of strong learning and growth. And what I want you to see is every one of these shifts creates an opportunity to move this trajectory line higher. So then you go to university, then you get a career, then you get a family, then you make all these other life decisions, and eventually, when you're older, the goal is to get to a place that you feel like, hey, I'm a success. I've had incredible development over my life, over time. Now that's great, and that's the plan, and that works well in normal times because the systems that are surrounding us all that we don't even think about all the time are there. Our infrastructure, our educational systems, our mental health systems, all those things are there to keep us all moving in that direction. And sometimes it's challenging, but in general, we make progress. But all of a sudden, it's not normal times. All of a sudden, boom, let's say you're a high school student right now. The pandemic hits. And nothing is normal. And you're thrown off of your trajectory until we can return to normal. And this is what everybody's worried about, because if you go off our trajectory, even if the rest of our life is as planned, supported by the system, we still end up someplace lower than we could have been. And so what we got to understand is the pandemic is disruptive because it was unanticipated. And the support systems are not there to maintain our personal trajectory. Everyone is off script. We're tight-roping without a net right now. This is a scary place to be. It's also an amazing place to be as a learner. In fact, the increased levels of challenge provide us with a brain-based developmental opportunity that's really rare and potentially very powerful. And that's what I want to explain next, because what I want to show you is there the opportunity right now to take what's going on in the brain and actually go up and end up someplace better? I'm going to argue yes, and let me show you model number 2 on why I think it's possible. So let's talk about the brain. The brain has evolved and changed over time, and one of my favorite older brain theories that I learned at the beginning of my educational career was called the triune brain theory, triune meaning 3. And it's more relevant than ever because it can help us to understand what we are experiencing as a result of this pandemic. The theory breaks our brain development down as a species into 3 unique brain layers. I'm going to draw them here and describe how they are interconnected and why it matters to you. Let me start by explaining the first layer. And in the evolution of our brain, this theory suggests that the first layer to develop is something they call the reptilian brain, or the animal brain, whatever you want to call it. And its primary function was fear, keeping you alive, survival. And here's the thing about this brain. It's instinctual, it's reactive, and it's the most primal part of our brain. And what's important about it more than anything is its location. This brain sits right on top of all the wiring that's going up into your system. It's hardwired to your nervous system. It has to keep you safe from threats. It has to react to fear with such strength, such speed, the signal flow to the rest of the brain gets hijacked. It's impossible in moments of fear to engage other parts of the brain. Perfect example. How many of you have ever made a decision in a moment of emotion that you later regret? Yeah, maybe you said something unkind or did something selfish. Of course, we all have, but we're still alive. So maybe not the smartest part of our brain, but effective in its own way. Now, let's look at layer number 2. Sitting on top of that reptile animal brain, this is part of our evolution. We're not reptiles, we're mammals. And they call this the mammalian brain in this theory. And in the mammalian brain, what we developed was our innate tendency to nurture, to care about things, right? And this is a great thing about humans because we survive by working together, by creating families and communities. We quite literally need each other for survival. As an educator, I'm surrounded all the time by parents and teachers, and this is the part of the brain that's highly developed in those folks. This brain is where our sustainability comes from. Now, layer 3 of our brain, the most recent and still evolving part of our brain, is called the neocortex. And quite simply, this is where our intelligence lives. And I'll put quotes around that because I believe all layers of the brain are intelligence, but this is the part of the brain that we design our testing for. And it lives right up here on the top. And it's our most rapidly evolving layer. It integrates our higher order thinking skills and separates us from all other species. At our best, this part of our brain has driven some of our most spectacular achievements. What's important to see here is that by design, by architecture of the brain, the fear layer can hijack, override the capacities of the other 2 layers. Fear prevents us from being effective in our community, in our relationships, in our families, and it can also inhibit our ability to demonstrate high levels of intelligence. When emotion is high, intelligence is low. The pandemic is global and driving an unprecedented level of fear right now. Uncertainty, financial strain, health threats, families are distanced, remote working lacks connection, a million problems right now. So globally, I know we're doing the best that we can, but we can do a much better job of approaching this from a brain-based, more naturally aligned understanding of what we all need collectively to move forward. So enough theory. Let's get down to some tactics, some tools for us all to get through this by intentionally making efforts to be better. So let's tie the trajectory model together with the triune brain and focus on how we can create positive shifts. So first, we must meet people, meet ourselves where we are. Let's address the fear and mitigate it so we can all move into the more resourceful, community building and problem solving parts of our brain. So shift number 1 is what we're going to focus on first. And that shift is getting out of fear. And this is going to be real valuable now if you are a leader or if you just care about other people. How can you shift them away from here so we can start to be happier and more productive? So first thing is, as an animal, when we're trapped in the fear brain, what we're really craving is safety. So how do we create it? Well, strategy 1, empathy. Get good at listening. Stop trying to be right and work on just being present. Listen for common ground and focus your energy there. Strategy 2, model vulnerability, especially leaders. Model sharing about yourself, you. What's challenging you? I want to know your fears, your concerns, and here's a big one. What help do you need? What support do you need? This gives everyone around you permission to go there, to be real, to be genuine, to ask for help, to offer support, and this builds trust at the deepest levels of our brain and our psyche. So now that we're shifted out of fear, let's talk about shift number 2. It's called inclusion. Let's strengthen our community and our human connections right now. This pandemic's creating divides. It's time to intentionally bring ourselves together and start rebuilding human connection. If people have fallen away, been excluded, or chosen to step back, we need strategies for re-engaging. So here's the first one. Get in a group, a club, or a working team. Virtually or in person, you've got to choose to be a part of something. All of us must choose to engage and to seek others to engage them. The mammal brain needs this. We need this as a species. Strategy 2 in education, where I'm from, is called PBL, or project-based learning. But really, it's just about assembling around a piece of work, a project. Find something to work on collaboratively. The work accelerates the development of relationships. Having input makes people feel valued, and they will value each other. This builds community and connection. Now let's talk about shift number 3. How do we get up here to the highest level? We call it co-creation. It's the highest level of our brain's capacity. The ability that separates us from other species is our creativity, our higher order thinking skills. Let's use creativity and our intelligence to proactively respond to the challenges of this time. We are fantastic problem solvers. So let's do that. Let's work together right now to create the solutions that will help us and future generations to have learned and improved from this time. We don't get out of this by sitting around and complaining about it, and that certainly won't prevent it from happening again. So look at what's not working, get in a team, listen to each other, and start creating solutions. The process of creation, and especially co-creating, is incredibly unifying and fulfilling. In closing, this may be one of the most significant challenges we all face in our lifetimes. Rather than reacting from a place of fear and fighting amongst ourselves, damaging ourselves, let's use this as a generational opportunity to strengthen ourselves, our communities, and our humanity. This might be our world war, our global fight, a fight we can only win if we learn the valuable human lesson of helping one another to move forward in the face of adversity. Go be good humans.